When I was excluded from my son's wedding, I discovered a hidden strength that changed everything. Mary's heart shattered when she learned that Jake was getting married without her. The wedding invitation lay on the table, a stark reminder of the gaping chasm between the lives they led. Her son, soon to be wed to a girl from an affluent family, had decided that she wasn't worth including in that picture-perfect moment. The rejection stung deep and visceral, an ache that gripped her chest as if squeezing out every ounce of AI or did I in the cozy diner where she worked. The clinking of cups and chatter of customers muted the roar of her loneliness. She poured coffee with a smile, recalling her late husband, a soldier who fought bravely and loved fiercely. He believed every family deserved to thrive, that love was the richest currency they could ever have. Yet here she stood, feeling like a ghost, floating beneath the expectations that societal norms placed on her. Jake's wedding felt worlds away, a reminder of her humble beginnings where money equaled worth as the scrub tables gleamed under the diner's soft lights. Mary's mind drifted back to nights spent sifting through her husband's old belongings for comfort. It was then she stumbled across a letter, a heartfelt testimony of love and dreams for their family. His words danced off the page, filled with hope, a vision of a united family against all odds, screaming for resilience that ignited a faded spark within her. Suddenly, she felt a flicker of courage that urged her to step out of the shadows of her own self-doubt. Determined, she began volunteering at the local community center, helping families just like hers shoulder the weight of financial strain. Cooking classes, budgeting workshops, and story circles bloomed, and with every shared experience, Mary felt the invisible chains of inadequacy beginning to snap. Love, not money, anchored her worth. Neighbors rallied around her, chiming in with their laughter and tears, transforming Mary into a beacon of hope. She thrived amidst compassion, and each life she touched gave her a new thread to weave into her own identity. But just as the tide seemed to shift, the phone rang. "Mom, I need to talk to you." Jake's voice trembled with urgency, a crack in the happy facade of his life. Tension hung thick in the air, and Mary's heart raced, teetering between excitement and fear. Could this be the moment she reclaimed her son? Could he see the strength in her that society tried to erase? "I'm not sure what to do," he continued, the weight of his words echoing inside her chest. They stood on the brink of something yet to unfold, and Mary felt the raw vulnerability emanate from him. She inhaled deeply, her courage pooling in her gut, ready to meet his uncertainty. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Mary's heart pounded with anticipation. Every choice they made echoed through their past, shaping their fragile bond. Did Jake understand the fierce love behind her battle-worn exterior? Would their journey together triumph over hidden barriers? Or would the weight of expectations drive them apart? There, in the swirl of emotions and unspoken worries, Mary stood poised at a crossroads, ready to claim her voice and fight for their family against the odds that threatened to sever them once and for all. Mary's heart raced as she clasped the phone tighter, its cool surface grounding her in the whirlwind of thoughts. Jake's vulnerability was a plea, a desperate reach across the divide that had grown too wide over the years. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. I'm not sure how to explain. Can we meet?" He sounded far away, like he was searching through a fog of decisions. "Of course, sweetheart. Where?" There was a pause. Then he picked the small coffee shop around the corner from the diner. Mary's mind swirled with possibilities. Was he unraveling under the weight of expectations? Did he miss her too? As she prepared for their meeting, a mix of hope and dread consumed her. She pulled on a faded cardigan, a piece that once belonged to her husband. It was his way of wrapping her in love when he was gone. Arriving early, Mary settled at a corner table, the hum of conversation wrapping around her. The smell of coffee and baked goods twisted her memories tighter, bringing back laughter shared over warm slices of pie. She stirred the foam in her cappuccino absent-mindedly, watching the barista work with zest. This was her life now. A tapestry woven with threads of grief and growth, When the door swung open, it was as if time slowed. Jake stepped in, looking more like a young man facing a storm than the boy she remembered. The strife in his eyes reflected a struggle she recognized all too well. He spotted her and moved closer, his steps heavy, as if the burden of his secrets weighed him down. "Hey Mom," he said softly, sliding into the chair opposite her. His gaze faltered, searching for words. "Jake, what is going on?" she asked again, the worry lacing her voice. He exhaled, and with that breath everything fell out. "I thought I'd be happy. With Emily. The wedding. It's supposed to be perfect, but all I feel is this emptiness." His hands trembled as they fidgeted with the edge of the table. "I didn't want to hurt you. But Mom, I'm lost." Mary's heart sank and soared at the same time. She felt the walls around her son crumbling, and it reminded her of her own recent awakening. Maybe the same flicker of courage she felt was now brightening the darkness Jake had been navigating. "You're not alone. We're in this together. It's okay to feel lost." He looked up, confusion cracking through his facade. "How can you say that? I made a choice to start a life without you. But did you really choose a life without me?" She countered gently. "Or did you choose what you thought everyone expected you to do? We all march to the beat of someone else's drum until we find our own rhythm." Jake. His expression changed, realization sparking in those deep blue eyes. "What if I don't want what they want for me? What if—" Mary leaned closer, her heart full of understanding, pushing his doubts away like the waves of an ocean receding. "Then you must find your voice, even if it shakes. Maybe it starts with honesty." Silence hung between them, laden with new possibilities and fragile hope. For the first time since the wedding invite had arrived, Mary felt the warmth of connection spark anew. "I don't want to lose you, Mom," he admitted, tears threatening to spill. "You want to. But you have to decide who you want to be. The brave thing isn't always the easiest thing, but it's necessary." As they shared a moment of reckoning, the doorbell jangled, announcing a supportive friend from the diner. The sudden intrusion jolted Mary, but she recognized it as a twist of fate, another thread weaving into their story, pulling them closer together. "Maybe life is trying to tell us something," she whispered, an energy bubbling in the pit of her stomach. Jake nodded slowly, determination replacing doubt. They had a long path ahead, fraught with choices and shadows, but together was a beginning. As Mary smiled, hope swelled in her chest. But it wasn't just about reconnecting with her son. There was something bigger at play, echoing in her spirit, a new strength rising to the surface. What would it reveal as they embarked on this journey together? This was only the beginning, and Mary was ready to embrace what came next. Would Jake find the courage to follow his heart's true path? And how would Mary transform in the light of her son's struggle? The future loomed before them, exciting and terrifying, each heartbeat marking the dawning of something new. Mary glanced over at the friend who had just walked in, a warm smile on her face. Helen had always been a comforting presence, her joyful nature lighting up any room. But today, Mary felt the weight of her turmoil pressing in on her like a heavy blanket. "Hey Mary." "Jake." Helen waved, her eyes sparkling. "Thought I'd grab a coffee before my shift. What's going on?" Mary opened her mouth, ready to answer, but Jake jumped in first. "Just talking about everything." His voice was thick with emotion, a mix of relief and anxiety hanging in the air. Helen raised an eyebrow, sensing the tension. "Everything? That sounds serious." Mary shot her son a glance, silently asking for confirmation. He nodded slightly. Helen took a seat, her presence a gentle anchor. "Sometimes it helps to talk about it," Helen offered, her tone warm and inviting. "I've been there, you know. When my ex got remarried, I felt so lost." The mention of Helen's pain sparked a common thread, a silent understanding passing between them. Mary felt the connection deepen. "It's hard to know what to do when life takes a turn you didn't expect," Mary finally said, her eyes locked on Jake. "Especially when it comes to family." "Yeah," he replied quietly. "I tried to create the perfect future everyone expected of me. But it feels like I'm about to walk down an aisle blindfolded." A soft chuckle escaped Helen. "That's one way to put it. If it helps, sometimes the blindfold allows you to feel what's truly important." "It looks like you're finding your voice, Jake." She turned to Mary. "And you're doing an incredible job supporting him. You know, listening without judgment is a gift. Not everyone has that." Mary felt her heart expand at Helen's words. It was a subtle reminder of the strength she had discovered within herself, the courage to be there for Jake, even as she faced her own fears. But Jake's expression remained clouded. It's just, what if I tell Emily I don't want the wedding? What if I disappoint everyone? Disappointment is part of life, but so is authenticity, Mary replied gently. Her heart ached for him. You don't have to carry this alone. You have me, and you have your truth, which is more important than their expectations. Jake squared his shoulders, his determination flickering back into view. What if I don't know how to start? What do I even say? Mary leaned in closer, her voice steady. Sometimes you just have to be honest. Start with your heart and trust that it will lead to where you're meant to be. As the conversation continued, Mary could see the facade cracking further. The walls he had built to protect himself were showing signs of crumbling. I'm scared, he admitted, voice trembling. I understand, she whispered. It's okay to be scared. It means you're about to do something brave. Just then the barista delivered Jake's coffee, steaming and fragrant. As Jake took a sip, a small smile broke through his worry. Maybe there was room for courage in his heart after all. Well, hot coffee brings clarity, Helen exclaimed, raising her own cup in a toast. To new beginnings. They all clinked their mugs together. A moment of triumph swirling in the air. For Mary, it wasn't just about today. It was about facing the unknown, taking steps toward authenticity, and redefining what love looked like. But beneath the newfound hope, a twinge of fear lingered in her chest. What happens next? She wondered silently. As they shared stories and laughter, Mary felt an undeniable shift within her, a longing to reclaim pieces of herself she had set aside. Would she also have the courage to step into her own new beginning? And as Jake found clarity in his heart, would he discover a way to follow the path that felt true to him? The questions hung in the air, fueling the uncertainty and excitement of the journey ahead. There was still so much to explore, so many corners of their lives to turn. What revelations awaited them as they dared to step into the light together? The warmth of the coffee shop felt like a protective embrace as Mary took another sip, letting the flavorful heat awaken her senses. She glanced at Jake, whose brows were still furrowed, worry etched across his face. Mom, do you think I really can do this? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Mary reached across the table to hold his hand, feeling the slight tremor in his fingers. You're stronger than you think, Jake. Remember, this is about your happiness too. It's okay to want something different. Helen nodded, sipping her coffee, her eyes bright with encouragement. You'd be surprised how many people admire someone for standing in their truth. It takes a lot of courage to be honest with yourself and others. I just don't want to hurt anyone, Jake replied, rubbing the bridge of his nose in frustration. Emily deserves the big day she has been planning. But what about what you deserve? Mary interrupted softly, her gaze unwavering. It's your life too. You matter. The sincerity in her tone resonated with him, and for the first time, Jake's shoulders began to relax. A flicker of understanding danced in his eyes. You're right, but how do I even begin? Saying I don't want to marry you seems so harsh. Maybe it doesn't have to be that way, Helen chimed in. You can express how you feel without putting the blame on anyone. It's about sharing your heart, not blaming anyone for what you truly want. Mary added, start with what you feel. It's okay to say you're scared, confused, or unsure. You have the power to shape this conversation. Honesty wrapped in kindness goes a long way. He nodded, absorbing their words. Maybe I could approach it differently. Maybe just say that I need to talk about the wedding, how it feels overwhelming. I don't know, I still love her, but that's a great start, Mary encouraged, her heart swelling with pride as they spoke. A small sense of hope bloomed within him, a fragile bud amid uncertainty. Mary couldn't help but reflect on her own life and the corners she had yet to explore. Speaking of new beginnings, Helen said with a gleam in her eyes, when was the last time you did something just for you, Mary? Caught off guard, Mary's mind raced. I haven't thought much about that, she stammered. Isn't it time to start? Helen's voice was gentle yet insistent. You've been focused on Jake, and that's amazing. But what about your desires? Your dreams? Mary felt a mixture of embarrassment and longing. She had poured so much of herself into being a mother, the idea of pursuing her own passions felt foreign. I guess I've always put others first, exactly. Helen exclaimed. It's time to flip that narrative. What's something you've always wanted to do? The question hung above them, vibrant and full of possibilities. Mary's imagination began to turn the wheels, but she felt unsettled. The thought of stepping outside her comfort zone felt daunting. She fiddled with the edge of her mug, contemplating a world where she could redefine her own journey. As she opened her mouth to respond, she realized there was so much more inside her, waiting to burst forth. Jake, catching her contemplative mood, asked, "What about you, Mom? What do you want?" The warmth in the shop grew heavier, filled with the unspoken dreams both mother and son held just out of reach. Mary found herself at a crossroads, with a flicker of excitement igniting beneath her fears. I don't know yet," she finally admitted, her voice brimming with vulnerability, "but I want to find out." Their moment was interrupted by a joyful laugh from a nearby table, a reminder that life continued all around them. But within their circle, a quiet revolution was brewing, a transformation that held the potential to change everything. As they prepared to leave, promising to be there for each other, Mary felt the ache of fear mix with the thrill of possibility. Would they both have the courage to move forward into their new beginnings? Outside, the world buzzed with energy, but inside, a quiet inkling whispered this was just the beginning. As they stepped into the sunlight, the future loomed vast before them. What other truths would they uncover as they began to follow their hearts, unguarded and ready for whatever came next? Mary stepped onto the sidewalk, the sun breaking through the clouds above. It felt like a sign, something more than just weather, perhaps a flicker of hope. Jake's pace quickened as he matched her step, the weight of their earlier conversation still heavy in the air. "Mom," he said, hesitating, "I really appreciate you being here for me. It's a lot to take in." Mary smiled, pressing his hand gently. "We're all in this together. Just remember to be honest with yourself. That's the most important thing." She watched as he contemplated her words, the determination slowly replacing the doubt in his eyes. She felt her own heart race with a mix of excitement and anxiety. With each step, she was reminded of her own crossroads, her own longing to discover what lay beyond her role as a mother. "What about you, Mom?" Jake asked again, the curiosity dancing around his voice. "Have you thought about what you want?" The question caught her off guard and she paused. Their earlier conversation echoed in her mind, bringing back that flutter of possibility. "I guess I've been thinking maybe I'll take a class. Something I've always wanted to try." "What class?" he probed with genuine interest. "Art," she replied hesitantly, a smile creeping onto her lips. "I've always wanted to paint. It was just never the right time." "No time like the present, right?" Jake pointed out. "Right," she echoed, feeling an unexpected burst of excitement. She could picture herself wandering through a bright studio, brushes in hand, exploring colors that spilled onto canvas free. With a new sense of purpose, they continued walking, passing familiar streets that held memories. As they rounded a corner, a quaint art gallery caught her eye. Paintings lined its windows, vibrant and expressive. "Should we take a peek?" Jake suggested, pointing with renewed energy. "Sure." Mary smiled, feeling the thrill of spontaneity. They stepped inside, the bell above the door chiming softly as the atmosphere shifted. The air smelled of fresh paint mixed with an earthy undercurrent. As they strolled through the gallery, Mary let herself be swept up in the colors and strokes that spoke to her. She marveled at how each piece told a story, just like hers and Jake's. "Look at this," Jake said, pointing to a canvas splashed with vivid blues and greens. "It's chaotic but beautiful." "It's like life," Mary mused, her heart fluttering as she took in the abstract chaos. Beautiful things can come from messiness. Just then the gallery owner approached them, a sparkle in her eye. "Welcome. If you're interested in starting your own journey in art, we have a class coming up next week." Mary felt her pulse quicken. A rush of adrenaline surged through her. This was the moment she'd been waiting for. A chance to finally embrace the things she had pushed aside for so long. "Maybe I will," she found herself saying, mesmerized by the thought of standing before a blank canvas, yet uncertain if she truly had the courage to take that plunge. "Mom, you should do it," Jake urged, his enthusiasm infectious. As she considered the sign, the questions of whether she was ready flooded back to her. Fear whispered in her ear, reminding her of the risks involved. But more than the fear, she felt a promise of possibilities, the chance to reclaim her own identity. Let us sign up together. Jake exclaimed. This could be our adventure. The idea warmed her heart, and for the first time, she felt a shift within. It would be a leap, a new chapter that held both fear and excitement. Yes, she said softly, the word a commitment to herself. Let us do it. As they walked out of the gallery, renewed energy thrummed between them. Their individual journeys might have been unclear, but together, they'd take that leap. Little did they know, this was just the start of their transformation. Both were brimming with uncharted lives ahead. What would they discover about themselves when they dared to step into the unknown? Would they find more than just strength but also a deeper connection as mother and son? Mary and Jake walked side by side, the buzzing excitement of their decision hanging in the air like the scent of fresh paint. As they stepped into the light outside, the sun shone brighter, almost as if applauding their newfound resolution. Their casual pace matched the rhythm of the day, yet both felt a charge between them, a sense of embarking on something extraordinary. Do you think it'll be fun? Jake asked, a glint of mischief in his eye. I mean, what if we both end up painting horrible stick figures? Mary laughed. Then we'll make a gallery of stick figures. Can you imagine? The Museum of Mediocre Art or something fancy like that. Right. Admission is free, but donation highly encouraged. Jake chuckled and the sound warmed her heart. It was moments like these that reminded her of the adventure they were on together, one where laughter weaved dreams into reality. They decided to grab a quick bite before heading home, a small cafe on the corner catching their eye. Inside, the walls were painted in soft yellows, brightening the cozy nook. The aroma of coffee and baked goods filled the air, inviting them to stay a while. They settled into a corner table, and Mary felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude wash over her. The simple joy of sharing laughter and a meal with Jake was quickly becoming one of her favorite moments. As they enjoyed their sandwiches, Jake grew serious, his brow furrowing slightly. You know, Mom, I've been thinking. This art class, it's not just about painting, right? It's about finding what you want. Like how I'm trying to figure out my own stuff too. His words struck her. Here they were, two people on the cusp of change, their fears and dreams swirling together like paint on a canvas. You're right, she replied, her voice gentle. It's about more than just art. It's about discovering who we are, apart from whatever expectations we've lived with. Jake nodded, his gaze drifting out the window. I hope we find out what we really love. I don't want to just get stuck in a life that doesn't feel like mine. His vulnerability surprised her, but as she watched him, she felt a pang of pride. This journey was significant for both of them, allowing space to explore their passions and fears. A thought crossed her mind, sudden and fleeting. What if we showcase our work? By the end of the class, we could have an exhibition. He raised an eyebrow, a mix of disbelief and intrigue. An exhibition? You mean with other people looking at our paintings? What if they're terrible? It doesn't have to be about perfection, she exclaimed, feeling the rush of the idea ignite her spirit. It's about expression, about showing up and being brave. Besides, we're in this together. Who cares what kind of masterpieces we create? They'll be ours. Jake sighed, a smile slowly creeping across his face. Okay, you know what? Let us do it. Let us go all out. With renewed enthusiasm, they finished their meal, the venture ahead brightening with each passing minute. The thought of embracing whatever came their way filled them with energy, the prospect of a canvas to explore their stories and each other's lives. As they walked back, Mary noticed the hints of dusk settling in. The orange hue draped the world in a warm embrace, and for the first time in what felt like ages, she could see the horizon stretching wide with possibilities. But just as they were about to cross into familiar territory, a commotion caught her attention. There, in a crowd gathering across the street, she spotted an old family friend. The sight sent a wave of nostalgia crashing down on her. But behind that longing lay something else, an old vulnerability that threatened to resurface. What if Jake's voice trailed off as they approached the gathering? Mary felt a knot form in her stomach. What if the past came rushing back in a tidal wave? Not just her own but Jake's too. Mom, are you okay? You look a little pale, Jake noticed, concern flickering in his eyes. Yeah, her voice faltered as she tried to steady herself. What was waiting on the other side of this old memory? She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing down. Would facing the past only complicate the new journey they were starting? Realizing it was now or never, She looked at Jake, the determination in his expression fueling her courage. "You ready, Mom?" he asked, stepping closer. "I think so," she said quietly, her heart pounding. Let us see what's waiting for us. Would this unexpected encounter help forge new bonds? Or would it stir old wounds that could hinder their journey? Mary took a step forward, her heart racing. The crowd was thick, buzzing with chatter, but it grew silent as they moved closer. She recognized a few faces, the remnants of her past, reflections of a life that seemed both distant and familiar. The old family friend she had spotted was at the center, animatedly speaking to a group. A knot twisted deeper in her stomach. This was a person who once shared in her joys and sorrows. Someone from a time when laughter flowed as easily as tears. What if they judge me? She thought, glancing briefly at Jake. He was staring up at her, his brown eyes wide and curious, echoing a mixture of concern and excitement. He sensed her hesitation, the uncertainty wrapped around her like a cloak. "They won't, Mom. You're strong," he murmured as if reading her thoughts. His faith in her was both reassuring and terrifying. She took another deep breath, steeling herself against the tide of emotions as they approached the gathering. Mary could hear snippets of laughter and stories shared, some familiar, some foreign. It reminded her of holidays spent laughing over meals, and then just as quickly, it pulled her back to the moments when things had begun to unravel. "Mary! Oh my goodness, is that really you?" The voice cut through the air like a clarion call. It was Susan, her old friend, eyes wide with delight. She rushed forward, enveloping Mary in a warm embrace. Mary felt the tension begin to dissipate, even as a wave of bittersweet memories rushed over her. "Long time no see," Susan exclaimed, stepping back to take a good look at her. "You look amazing. How have you been?" "Busy, you know," Mary said, forcing a smile even as her heart wavered. "But good. I was just thinking it might be time to reconnect." Susan's eyes glinted with understanding. "We've missed you. You need to come by more often. Everyone keeps asking for you." For a brief moment, Mary felt the warmth of acceptance wrap around her. But then the familiar shadows edged back in. The faces she had lost touch with. The moments that had slipped through her fingers like sand. "Jake," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I want you to meet someone." She waved him over, and he joined her with his usual teenage enthusiasm. "This is my son Jake," she introduced, her chest swelling with pride. Jake stepped forward, shaking Susan's hand firmly. The warmth between them easily bridged the years that had separated Mary from this circle. "Jake, that's Susan. We were really close back in the day," Mary shared, hoping to impart some of that history to him. Jake smiled, but Mary sensed the uncertainty lurking behind his eyes. Was he processing who she was before, or was he trying to figure out where he fit into this forgotten world? "Are you doing the art class?" Susan asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. Mary's heart fluttered. She had wanted to share that news, to bring a piece of her new self into this space. "Yes," she confirmed, her voice brimming with enthusiasm. "Jake and I are doing a class together. It's been really invigorating. You should come to the exhibition. We're planning it for the end of next month." Jake chimed in, his eagerness tangible. Susan's excitement mirrored Jake's. "You have to. It's going to be wonderful. A chance for everyone to see what you two create." Mary felt a thread of hope weaving through her worries. Maybe this was her chance to reconnect, to share not just the past but her present. A flicker of doubt lingered though. What if they didn't accept this new version of her? What if they wanted the Mary they used to know, the one who had retreated into the shadows? Just as she was about to voice her fears, a small voice from behind caught her attention. "Mom, can I tell Susan about that time you tried to bake a cake and it exploded?" Jake's grin was infectious, the laughter easing the weight of her anxiety. "Jake," she exclaimed, but his laughter was already infectious, spreading through the crowd. And for the first time Mary felt a spark of courage. Perhaps she could embrace her past while stepping boldly into her future. But then, Susan's expression changed, the light in her eyes dimming momentarily. "Wait, are you okay? I heard about your husband. I'm so sorry." The sudden shift in the atmosphere enveloped Mary with a heaviness. She hadn't anticipated that conversation would find her today. Her fingers curled around Jake's, grounding her as she faced the truth that remained hidden beneath the surface as the chatter around them faded. Mary felt a difficult choice looming. Would she push through the pain, share her truth, Or would she let old wounds dictate their path moving forward? Her heart raced. She knew she had to respond. What would she say? And how might it change everything for them? Mary's heart pounded in her chest. It felt as if the entire room had merged into a single all-encompassing gaze. Every whisper, every shared glance became a weight she hadn't anticipated. She squeezed Jake's hand tighter, seeking reassurance in his presence. He was her anchor, as much as she was supposed to be his. I'm okay, she managed to say, forcing her voice past the lump in her throat. But the words felt hollow, like echoing chambers that didn't belong to her anymore. The gust of shock on Susan's face made her question whether she was fooling anyone. Really, it's been a tough time, Mary added, surprising herself. The truth wrapped around her tongue like a warm blanket, and a small part of her felt liberated saying it out loud. Susan stepped closer, her expression softening. You don't have to pretend, Mary. We're here for you. The sincerity in Susan's eyes eased some of the tension. It was a reminder that connections could still exist, despite the silence that had built walls around them. Jake glanced between the two women, a mixture of worry and confusion crossing his features. Mom, are you sure you're okay? His voice was gentle, but the concern was real. How much had he sensed? How much had he been worried about her own pain? Yes, baby, I really am. She wrestled with her next choice of words. I didn't expect to be reminded so suddenly of what I've been through. Saying this felt like peeling back a protective shell. But maybe it's time to let it all in, right? Jake's response was a fierce nod, as though he understood better than she expected. Let us find a quieter spot, Susan suggested, her voice soothing. We can talk more privately. She led the way, and Mary followed with Jake close at her side. The surrounding noise faded, replaced by a comforting warmth that hung thick in the air as they settled on a low stone wall. The atmosphere shifted. It was now less about her pain and more about reconnection. I hated that I lost touch with you all, Mary admitted, gripping her knees. The old wound stung anew as she scrutinized her own choices. It was easier to distance myself rather than confront what was happening. Well, you can't eat cake without getting a little frosting on your face, right? Susan winked, trying to lighten the mood. We all have our experiences, some of us just wear them differently. Mary chuckled lightly, but the laughter held a tenderness that perhaps only she could understand. Does it ever really get easier? She murmured, more to herself than to Susan. Yes, Susan replied firmly, her gaze earnest. Takes time, but it does. You have Jake here. You're not alone. Mary looked at her son, who was watching her with those big brown eyes, filled with compassion and understanding. It struck her then just how deeply interconnected their journeys were. The shadows of her past could cloud their future, or they could emerge as a team, unearthing new paths. Mary inhaled deeply, absorbing the warmth of this moment. I want to do this differently. I want to be brave. Jake smiled, clearly relieved at his mother's willingness to embrace hope. We can tackle everything together, right? Even the big stuff like art shows or life? Susan chimed in, that's the spirit. You both have so much to share. The genuine support surrounding her felt electric. But then, just as the corners of Mary's lips began to lift, the chatter ricocheted back into her mind, faces she didn't know if she could face. Old friends who might have never let a slice of cake go without judgment. Could they actually embrace this new version of her without comparing? Jake, are you okay with everything? She suddenly feared that what was unfolding could be too much for him. The last thing she wanted was for his excitement to be met with uncomfortable scrutiny. His gaze met hers. Mom, you're amazing. No matter what anyone thinks, I'll always be proud of you, he said with fierce honesty. Mary's heart swelled with love, but the weight of how it would play out in the future gnawed at her insides. She needed to face the unknown, not just for herself but for Jake too. As they sat in that moment of connection, the path ahead unfurled into uncertainty. Would she have the strength to face her past? Or would her fears keep her bound to the shadows? Deep breaths, she reminded herself. One step at a time. Just as her heart was beginning to settle, she felt a prickling uncertainty again. What if the next moment held something she couldn't handle? Suddenly, Susan's phone buzzed in her pocket, interrupting her thoughts, and the two women turned their heads in unison, both of their gazes drawn to the sudden influx of energy in the crowd. What now? Mary whispered, feeling a ripple of anxiety return. As if on cue, a distant commotion erupted, and the air crackled with tension. "What's going on?" Mary asked, sensing that whatever it was, it might just change everything. In an instant, the once gentle hum of the crowd shifted to a rising tide of voices. Mary's heart raced at the unsettling sound. It felt like shadows creeping back into her mind, old fears waiting to rise again. She caught Susan's worried look and felt the knot in her stomach tighten. "Let us check it out," Jake said, standing up and pulling on his mother's hand. His eagerness felt strangely reassuring, but Mary hesitated. "What if it's bad?" she whispered, her voice thin with concern. "Or maybe it's nothing," Jake said, his tone hopeful. He seemed determined to chase away the gloom that was beginning to envelop her. With one last glance shared between Susan and Mary, they followed Jake, who led them cautiously towards the crowd. Her lifelong instinct to avoid confrontation nagged at her, but the fierce love for her son fueled her forward as they drew closer. The disarray intensified. People were murmuring, eyes wide, pointing toward the center of the gathering. Mary felt a surge of panic rise. What if someone she knew had fallen ill? Or worse, what if it was an attack? Each scenario spiraled her thoughts deeper into a well of fear. "Stay close," Susan urged, positioning herself between Jake and the increasingly chaotic scene. Mary nodded, finding a measure of comfort in their united front. They reached the front of the crowd, and suddenly, the noise gave way to a shocking development. A couple stood at the center, tears streaming down their faces. Mary blinked, trying to register what was happening. It was Matt and Lisa, people from their past, who had once been part of their lives yet faded away into the backdrop of her solitude. Matt, his face flushed with emotion, held a small velvet box in his hands. He stumbled over his words. "I know. I haven't asked this in a while, but I love you, Lisa. Will you marry me?" Gasps reverberated through the crowd. For a moment Mary stood frozen, flooded with nostalgia. She remembered when they all sat together at summer barbecues, laughing and sharing dreams. But now those dreams had evolved into a life of their own, leaving her in a state of longing. As Lisa's face lit up with joy, her hands flew to her mouth in disbelief. "Yes, yes," she exclaimed, and the crowd erupted into cheers. Mary's stomach twisted. While joy washed over the pair, the moment deepened her sense of exclusion. She should be celebrating, yet here she was, battling old insecurities, wondering if she could ever feel that kind of happiness again. Jake beamed up at her. "Look, Mom. Isn't it beautiful?" His innocence was a beacon, reminding her of the love they shared. For all her worries of judgment and rejection, this was a moment of pure love, and it deserved to be honored. "Yes, it is," Mary replied, forcing herself to smile through the knots tightening in her chest. But something else flickered within her. If Matt and Lisa could have this moment of joy amidst their own trials, then surely she could claim her own piece of bravery. She had spent too long in the shadows, paralyzed by fear. She stepped forward, her heart pounding, but it was different now, not from fear but with intention. She turned to Susan and Jake, determination sparking in her gaze. "I want to celebrate too. I want to make connections. Even if it's scary, I need to be brave." Susan's eyes lit up, pride swelling within the crisp atmosphere. "That's the spirit, Mary. You've got this." With newfound resolve, Mary turned to face the couple in the center, ready to embrace this moment. But just as she took a step forward, a sharp voice sliced through the air, a voice she hadn't expected to hear. "Mary, is that you?" Her heart dropped. The familiar sound sent shockwaves of nostalgia and dread through her. The voice belonged to an old friend she thought she would never have to face again. What would happen now? She wondered, bracing herself for the unexpected reunion that could steer everything into uncharted waters. The crowd parted as Mary turned, her heart racing. It was Sarah, once a dear friend, now an unwelcome reminder of the past she thought she had left behind. Sarah's wide eyes were filled with a mixture of disbelief and curiosity, and a hint of something darker too. She had always been one to dwell on judgment, and Mary felt that familiar knot in her stomach tightening. "Mary, wow. It's been ages. I barely recognized you." Sarah's smile was wide, but there was knife-edged tension in the air that tangled with Mary's apprehension. "Hi, Sarah," Mary replied cautiously, forcing herself to step into this moment, recalling her husband's words about the value of family and friends. "How are you doing?" Oh, busy with life and kids, Sarah breezed. Yet that glint in her eye suggested she wished to pry into the deeper story. What brings you back to this scene? Mary swallowed hard, but Jake stepped in, sensing his mother's discomfort. We're here to celebrate love, he declared, a spark of youthful enthusiasm lighting the tension. Sarah turned her gaze to Jake, her expression softening. Ah, the next generation. How lovely. Are you excited about your mother's new art project? Mary's heart swelled as Jake's face lit up. Yeah, and we're even having an exhibition. His excitement was sky-high, the joy of creation sweeping away any remnants of uncertainty. Sarah raised an eyebrow, feigning surprise. Really? Mary, that's exciting. It's about time you found a hobby. And of course it's easy to forget about the mistakes of the past, I senti it? A chill coursed through Mary. Was Sarah being genuine or condescending? The past hung palpably between them, but this time, she refused to let its weight suffocate her. Life isn't just about perfection, Sarah, Mary said firmly, finding her voice amidst the echoes of doubt. I'm learning that it's about facing trials head-on no matter the outcome. It's about embracing life's messiness. Surprise flickered in Sarah's eyes, but Mary continued, the warmth of Jake's hand squeezing hers fueling her confidence. I'm proud of the work I'm doing at the community center, and I'm reclaiming my dreams. I'm not hiding anymore because of expectations. For a second Sarah stood there, and Mary wondered if she saw the kernel of truth beneath the surface. But then the moment passed, replaced by a look of mild annoyance. Isn't it a bit too late for all of this, though? Sarah scoffed lightly, poking at Mary's vulnerability. I mean, how much can you really achieve now? But Mary felt a surge of defiance. You're right about one thing, Sarah. It's never too late, especially now that I have my son supporting me. We've decided to embrace the noise and chaos together. The words flowed out strong, tender yet fierce. Jake moved in tighter, resolute. And if you can't celebrate with us, that's fine. But we're moving forward with love, art and honesty. That's what matters. The crowd began to listen, intrigued by this fierce mother-son duo. And in that moment Mary felt lighter, as if chains she had carried for too long were breaking. A movement whispered, one of connection, family and renewal. As Jake led her away, Sarah stood rooted to the spot, gaping as they reclaimed their place among old friends and new families. Come on, Mom. Jake beamed, full of vitality. Let us go cheer for Matt and Lisa. Mary's heart soared as they turned their backs to the past. Yes, let us celebrate love. For everything, every step we're taking. The tumult of emotions continued to swirl. Cheers rang out as Matt slipped the ring onto Lisa's finger, tears of joy washing over her face, illuminating the world around them. Do you see that, Jake? Mary said, placing an arm around him. Love is a choice. It's messy and complicated, but it's also beautiful. Yes, I get it now, Mom. Love is messy, but that's what makes it real. Jake's eyes reflected the hope growing inside him. They joined the cheers, filled with a sense of possibility, a newfound understanding of their own potentials woven together. A collective sigh of relief wafted through the air as if the universe was inhaling alongside them. They might have started this day feeling broken, but now they stood as two hearts beating with courage. Standing there beneath the golden afternoon sun, Mary realized they would pave their own path together. Fear would always linger, but so would love and connection. As they clapped and cheered amid the swirling confetti of past and present, one thing was clear: this was a moment to cherish. And as she squeezed Jake's hand, she knew this was just the beginning of a beautiful journey, full of unruly colors and stories that demanded to be painted. This was family, this was hope, and this was finally living. Before they left the celebration behind, Mary whispered to Jake, let us promise to always choose to be brave. Life is calling us to paint our truth. And as they walked away, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows yet illuminating their path ahead. You need to subscribe now to see what happens next in this incredible story. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep this journey alive. Comment your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. And wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need a little light in their lives.